When the registry was established in 2010, the goal was to look at real-world data representing all the different regions of the world, and specific at least to the United States, which I know best. You know, the FDA process for looking at devices lets us look at devices as on-label or off-label. And at times it's hard to collect off-label data. But the FDA allowed with the registry for collection of both on-label and off-label data, so we can really truly look at real-world utilization of devices and then the clinical outcomes based on how we as physicians decide to use the devices for any given patient. The GREAT study was started in 2010 as a way for us to look at aortic outcomes with all kinds of different treatment. And we've been able to now have some peer-reviewed publications that are coming from the GREAT registry. 3 specifically that we highlighted at the meeting this year. 1 on outcomes with type B dissection, and 2 looking at repair with an abdominal aortic specific anatomy to understand outcomes. So we're starting to do more looking at peer-reviewed publications to understand the implications of the treatments that we're doing. I'm going to focus a little bit more on the abdominal aortic publications rather than the dissection publication, but the 2 areas of focus on the peer-reviewed publications from the GREAT registry for aortic disease, we're looking at neck information as well as distal aortic bifurcation. The neck information looked at what we call cylindrical necks versus non-cylindrical necks, so slightly more challenging anatomy. And interestingly, what we saw, the results were even better with the non-cylindrical necks. And it was a little bit of a surprise, but it shows you, in my mind, number 1, that the registry can get us data, and number 2, that the outcomes aren't exactly what we expect, and it's the value of accumulating this data. And with the distal aortic bifurcation, we saw a very, very low rate of limb thrombosis and a slightly higher rate of type 2 endoleaks, which was the assumption and the hypothesis that we went into with that study. Long-term data for aortic endografting is critical. I think we're in an era right now where there's a lot of scrutiny on EVAR, and obviously being a US physician and not a UK physician, but with the NICE recommendations and guidelines, there's been concern on the long-term durability of EVAR. So the benefit of a registry like GREAT is large number of patients, not just patients that were applicable to a clinical trial, but everybody we take care of, and we can look at the long-term outcomes and how people do. So far what we've seen has been very positive. So we're hopeful that we can continue to follow people long-term and see the durability that we anticipate, but then take some of the concern away that's been established with the long-term durability of EVAR. The short-term versus long-term success is always a question that's been asked for years. I think even back to when Dr. Perotti first put the devices back then. But one of the goals, as we mentioned, is we want to see clinical outcomes. We need to look at short-term, but we also need to look at long-term. The registry is designed to look at 10 years worth of data. We will follow these patients for a long time, and it will continue to give us more and more answers about the questions we ask, and I think it will help determine and show us what the long-term durability will be. The GREAT registry is valuable because it's a large number of patients, we'll have long-term follow-up, but one of the nice parts of it is what we typically do every day. So I mentioned earlier that clinical trials sometimes are criticized because it's the best anatomy, safest patients, and outcomes will always look good with devices when you choose straightforward patients to treat. But the registry is not that way, and anyone can be enrolled, and as we discussed about on-label and off-label utilization, lots of patients are being treated, and I think that's really one of the parts of it that's unique and will give us additional information because it's truly what we do every day.